what I wanted to do was to look at the halachas that one of the halachas of Shavuot, because I think it's important halacha, and it's this whole idea of eating milchiks, because milchiks is like this big minhag, and I want to try to explore it a little bit more, and hopefully at the same time we will get time to explore one more aspect of it, and that is the well, we'll see as we get there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, if I can, I'm going to try and share my screen with you on try to do this now, with just so that we can see what I'm talking about if I can, but I'm not. Let's see, there's an on this, but it's not what it was. No, okay, so we'll just, if you don't mind, I'll just do it on my side. Okay, so the question is as follows: that we know that if I say to you, Shavuot is coming, so the first thing that comes to your mind is, be honest. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so interesting. For Italian, the first thing you think about is cheesecake. So that's quite interesting, and it's possibly problematic in itself, because is that the way we're supposed to be thinking? Is that really how our thinking should be? That the first thing that comes to mind as we talk about these things. So now I've figured out how to share my screen on this. There we go. And okay, you should be able to see that. Are you able to see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some sources on this, because they're important. So if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, so the Shulchan Aruch, the halachas of Shavuot in the Shulchan Aruch are very short. There's actually not much at all, because really Shavuot is this strange chag written simply strange. It is just and by us, really just a one-day Yom Tov, which is as a one-day.
What should I put on the headline of the TV?
It seems to be a bit of a noise background. On my phone, so okay. I don't know why there's such a noise here. There we go. Okay, so what we've got is this chag that is not really a chag in the way we normally understand chag, because chag to us is this time where we have rituals that somehow link into the chag that we're trying to have this chag on. So if you look at the Shulchan Aruch here, and only in the Ramah is there a thing. So all it says, Asali Sanu B'Motzei Chag HaShavuos. You're not allowed to fast at the end of Shavuos. So it's like very small ideas in Shavuos. But if you look through here, then you see a little bit down, he says, after the round brackets, it says, V'nohagim lishtoach asavim b'Shavuot. There's a minhag to put asavim. What are asavim? Grasses on Shavuot, b'Beit HaKnesset, v'habatim, in the shul and in the houses, zecher lesimchat matan Torah. Why? Why do we put grass and stuff? In order to remember the simcha of matan Torah. Okay, so that's one aspect. That's the second thing I want to discuss if we get a chance. And why is that such a big thing? Because on a Shabbos, on a Yom Tov like we have this year, where it falls out Motzei Shabbos, when do you put these grasses out? So you can't put them out on Shabbos, because that's preparing. Can you put them out before Shabbos? And if you do put them out before Shabbos, what about if you start playing with that grass is muktzah, because grass is muktzah as a thing anyway. So that already becomes a a discussion in and of itself, but I want to leave that for the moment. What I want to look at the next part. And that's where it says the following. V'nohagim b'chol makom lechol ma'achalei chalav. So everywhere has this minhag to eat ma'achalei chalav. When do you eat your milchik, son?
Maybe the second day. Or the first day, maybe first lunch.
Okay, so he says ma'achalei chalav b'yom rishon shel Shavuos, on the first day of Shavuos. That seems to be the correct time, is to have it on the Yom Rishon of Shavuos. Okay? The first day of Shavuos. But why do we do it? So why do you have milchiks? You know, you have it, it's nice, it's wonderful. It's a great thing to do. But why has it become the thing that we do is milchiks on Yom Tov?
Milchik, because that's what they ate at the Har Sinai. You're breaking up, Rabbi.
I'm not trying to. Let me just get onto. How's that, Lionel? Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. So what my question to you is, like, where do you get this from? That's what they ate. Who told you that? And I'm not belittling it. I'm asking, because that's what you heard, right?
Just I must have been told somewhere.
Yeah, right. Through the generations, somehow we've heard this, right? Interesting. So what I want to show you is that not everybody says that. In fact, I can't really find that. Where does it come from? Where does it come from? This whole idea of having milchiks because they ate milchiks because they were, they had to have, they couldn't eat the foods and all those things. So look what he says here. V'nira li hatam. The reason he says that, this is the Ramah writing. Shehu kamo hashnei atavshlim sheloichim belel Pesach zeichel Pesach, because that is coming as like, you have on Pesach, we have two. We spoke about this over Pesach. You have two cooked foods on Pesach. The one you have is the zroa, and the other one is the beitza, the egg. So the reason why you have the zroa is to represent the korban Pesach, and the beitza represents the korban Chagiga. So comes along the Ramah and he says that the reason why you have the milchiks on Shavuot is like the two cooked foods that we take on Pesach. Pesach was like Chagiga. So two can ochli ma'achal chalav. On Shavuot we eat ma'achal chalav, and then we eat meat. In the same way as you have two foods on the Seder table, you have these two food kind of categories, whatever, on the Shavuot. Okay? So my question to you is that why don't we just say that the reason why we eat so why don't we say that we have, instead of having milk and meat, why don't we have another egg on the night of Shavuot? Why has it Dafka translated itself into this concept of having milk? Why could it not be? It could be anything. It could have a stewed apple. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So it comes along, the Mishnah Berurah points us to go and look into the Magen Avraham. If you look into the Magen Avraham says that the reason why we have milk is because milk is a transformation. In the same way as we, as Am Yisrael, come to Har Sinai and we transform from the Tumah of Mitzrayim into the Kedusha of Har Sinai, subsequently the Jewish people who have the Torah, so too, because milk is from the blood of the animal and transforms when it gets into the udder of the cow, it transforms itself into being milk. And so therefore, the part of the milchik eating is representative of the transformational process that that we're supposed to go through. Okay, that's the Magen Avraham. That was an important thing. I heard that before. When I read it was astounding because we into such a small little thing, and then you're going to come from the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says, "V'ani shamati od b'shem gadol echad." Yeah, I heard some once. She'amar tam nachon lazeh ki b'eish andu al har Sinai v'ki Torah. Is that the time when they received Torah, the Yardim in Ahar lebeitam lo matzu malech, or they couldn't find anything to eat immediately. Kima chalei chalav. The only thing they could find was milchits. Because they need preparation to prepare the meat, lishchot, b'sakin, baduk, that it make a new knife, that it shechted properly, kasher tzva Hashem commanded them, when an aker, chutei chelev, they have to take all the stuff off it. So it's not that they didn't have, it's that there would have been a long process in order for them to get that. ולמלוח ולבשל בכלים חדשים, כי הכלים שהיו להם מקודם, שביש להם באוסו, because they had kalim that weren't kosher, and it's this whole story. But if you can see, the Mishnah Berurah quotes it not from a midrash and not from a Tanaic source. He quotes it from an Adam Gadol, some great person. Don't know who that is at this point in time, but it's fascinating because we've made this whole thing around this that is not even something that really is quoted officially by the by the Tanakh. Okay, so if that's the case, we now have to understand why is it that milk becomes the major thing. So there is a pasuk in the Torah, and the pasuk in the Torah says, somehow there's a connection of chalav to devash, okay, of the description of the land of Israel of chalav, and in fact, you can see there is the Aruch HaShulchan. Sorry, I don't have it on the sheet. The Aruch HaShulchan says something astounding. I'll show you this Aruch HaShulchan because if you don't see it, you won't like to realize where he's getting how he does. What the Aruch HaShulchan does is the Aruch HaShulchan says, let's try and understand where would you get the concept of eating milchiks from. And it's not only milchiks, because the truth is, if I say to you, what are you going to eat? You're probably going to eat something like some sweet, I don't know, cheese blintzers, or you're going to eat cheese cake. But where does this come from? So not only milchiks, but milchiks and honey, sweet and milk, like the cheesecake. I'll show you. There's in Shir Hashirim, which uses the word davash v'chalav tachat l'shonech, referring to the words of Torah. And since it's referring to the words of Torah, davash and chalav, the sweetness and the milchiks, that is therefore a perfect thing. There's but why dvash? Why? You understand the milchiks. Because the milchiks are going to lead to everything that we said so far. But why dafka dvash? Why does it come in that? He says because this is the Malbim. The Malbim says the process of preparing honey and preparing milk are similar. What happens is the bee goes and takes pollen, and it takes that pollen and it takes it to its hive, and through some type of process, it transforms the pollen into honey, in the same way as the blood transforms into milk. And so therefore, both of these things, davash and chalav, show the natural transformation through the godly process of which the world runs from one thing to another, from something which is simple, I suppose you call pollen simple, into something which is pure and wonderful and easy to eat. Therefore, says the Malbim, that's really what Am Yisrael is all about, is that through the Torah we transform ourselves from this potential, like pollen is potential, and the blood of the cow is potential, to become what we transform ourselves.
I don't have enough money to put my 13,000 rand to go.
Idea. Furthermore, he says,
I put 2,000 rand under my salary.
In the psukim that deal with with Shavuot, the psukim speak about this idea of a sorry, the Pesukim speak about this idea of this mincha chadasha laHashem b'Shavuot. That on Shavuot, what we bring is a mincha chadasha laHashem b'Shavuot. Remember, the Torah never refers to Shavuot as its own, as a chag. Never uses the name Shavuot. It speaks about it at the end of these weeks. But if you look at the word mincha chadasha laHashem b'Shavuot is mem. Okay, and then it's chadasha is chet, laHashem lamed, b'Shavuot is a bet, mei chalav, which means from the milk. And so therefore, he wants to say that this too is an indication, says the Aruch HaShulchan, of the fact that there is this need to bring milchiks on the night of Shavuot, well, on the day of Shavuot. Okay, then he says the following. The important idea, and that is that when we eat these milchiks, what else are you supposed to do? Because if we look carefully, the Aruch HaShulchan points out from the Ramah. He says, "V'zeh loshen Rabbeinu HaRamah, v'noagim le'echol machlei chalav b'yom rishon shel Shavuot, v'nireh li hatam," and he quotes the reason, and then he also quotes, "V'chein ochlin machal chalav, v'ochlin machal basar." The real minhag of Shavuot, according to the Ramah, is not just to have milchiks, because milchiks is indicative of the process of Matan Torah. But in actual fact, says the Ramah, that in addition to the milchiks, you're supposed to have fleishiks. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before. Is that since it's Yontef, in the same way as you have your two cooked meals on Pesach, being the Korban Pesach and the egg and the Beitzah, right? The Beitzah, what do we do with the Beitzah? We do nothing with the Beitzah. We have the egg in salt water, Shalom Yisrael, we get rid of it, and then we have a proper Yontef meal. So it would seem to be that this should be the same thing that happens on Yontef, is that you eat a shtickle milchik as a zeicher, simply as a remembrance of all these things that we spoke about, and then you should eat your milk, then you should eat a proper Yontef meal. And when you're going to eat a proper Yontef meal, so then then that means one also has to have different bread, because you can't have the same bread that you washed on for the milchiks. And there's a whole lot of complicated ways of doing this. But the interest of Shura is that it's clear, at least according to the Ramah, that one should have, in addition to milchiks, one should also have fleishiks, which is quite a chiddush for many, and it is what it is. Says the Aruch HaShulchan. This whole idea, of this transformative process for him is really, at the end of the day, the main thing. Why? Because he says there, the pasuk says, "V'yesh bazeh," this transformative process is a remez, is a hint, shehadin nitapech lerachamim. That when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that din changes to rachamim. That his midah of judgment changes to a midah of mercy, of compassion. And if that's the case, what's that got to do with Shavuot? And therefore, really what we understand is that this idea of having the grasses in the shul needs to connect into that. Why do we have the grasses in the shul? So we don't have grass in the shul. What we know, we bring flowers and plants and things like that into the shul. Comes along, the Mishnah Berurah explains the reason why you would do that is because there's a Mishnah that tells us in Masechet Rosh Hashanah that there are ba'arba prakim and ha'olam nidon, that the world is judged for specific times. One of those times is Atzeret. Atzeret is the term that is used by Chazal to imply the Shavuot. So what is judged for on Atzeret? On Atzeret, we are judged for the Peirot HaIlan, for the fruits of the trees. And if we're judged for the fruits of the trees on Atzeret, so therefore comes along the Mishnah Berurah explains that the reason why we are putting the trees in the shul is in order for us to remember that this Shavuot does have a special thing. and that is tefillah, that we should be davening for the perot ha'ilan, for the fruits of the trees. And so therefore, it's not just some thing to have these things out there. It's really as a reminder, according to the way he wants to present it, that we have the fruits of the Vilna Gaon brings, and he says, hold on, I don't know if you've heard this. I don't know what they do at Sunny Road. Do you have like, I don't know, tree decorations on Shavuot?
Yeah.
You do.
Flowers and plants, sure.
Flowers. That comes along the Vilna Gaon, and the Vilna Gaon says, and his words are so important. But the Vilna Gaon says, he quotes this minhag, and he says, he says, nowadays it's not appropriate to do that any longer. Why? Because why not? Why not? I mean, it's a minhag that goes back to the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch is great, and he's the Ramah is great. These are people that didn't just like pluck things out of the air. So says the Vilna Gaon, which is going to shed light onto something. The Vilna Gaon says the reason is because now ha'akum the goyim, right? What do? They bring ilanot lebatehem b'chagehem. That they bring trees into their home.
Christmas.
On Christmas. Now it's fascinating. The reason why it's fascinating, didn't the Ramah not know about this? So the answer to that is probably not. He didn't know about it. You know why he didn't know about it? Because it's not an old minhag. It's a minhag that seemed to have happened around the time of the Vilna Gaon. And it might not either that, or it wasn't a universal minhag. It was a minhag that happened in Lithuania. And it didn't happen in Poland. We don't know. But there are more.
Hold on, excuse me. You mean the minhag of
Christmas trees?
Of Christmas trees.
And we don't do it because they do it.
So it's a new minhag for them.
Sorry, a phone call came in. I didn't get a chance to look it up, but it seemed to be that therefore it's clear to say that Christmas trees is a relatively new thing. And therefore our minhag, the Vilna Gaon wanted us to change our minhag in order to ensure.
Having different types of people over the house. Yeah. The weird and the wonderful.
So,
you're breaking up, Trevor?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So you wanted to change the minhag so that?
So because you can't have a minhag like the goyim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So but we don't do that. We some people have held fast, and it could be one of the reasons. It could be because the Vilna Gaon only picked it up at that point in time, but it carried on anyway, or because we know a different minhag, and they're for different reasons. So I suppose if you brought a into the shul, people might say, hold on a second, appropriate treat. But if you therefore we don't have an issue of it because it reminds us of
this. Rabbi, just hold on. Just repeat that last sentence. If we bring what?
I was saying we bring plants and flowers into our shul. We're not bringing in Christmas. So I think that's why we've maintained. Okay, so we've learned milchiks. I hope you learned something new about milchiks because there's that, and it just makes it more meaningful. And it's all in halacha. Cake. Remember, it's not just cheesecake. It's cheese, halav and the dvash. The halav and the dvash are the process that we should also be going through on Matan Torah. So thanks for being here, and please God, we'll continue to learn after Yom Tov. Have a wonderful.
I just got two questions.
Pleasure.
The one is, what's the transformation of the Ada? What did you say? From blood?
It's blood becomes milk.
The blood from what? From?
The blood of the cow becomes milk in the cow.
Oh, I see. Transformation
is a derivative of blood. It's not its own thing that is made. It comes specifically out of the blood of the cow.
Okay. The other thing is, it's not our custom to have a cheese blintzer and then have a meat meal after that.
So according to the Ramah, that is the real custom. The Ramah wants to say that you should have milchik and then you should have a small milchik thing as a zeicher, as a remember, and then you have a proper yontif meal because that's a proper yontif meal. But that doesn't seem to be the prevailing custom. So it's
a bit of a problem for me. I just to have a bit of a mixture like that, It's,
yeah. So it becomes like kashrut issues and what have you. But that becomes an allowance for us to learn a bit more about it. But everyone must do what they do in their custom. I just want to try out some ideas to hopefully make your yontif a little bit more meaningful.
That was incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
Chag Sameach.
You too, and to the family.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.